As of recently, I've been playing around with this app called Reface. Essentially what it does is you take a simple photo of yourself and upload it to their servers. Afterwards, an advanced cloud-based AI runs through movie scenes to replace the actor's face with your own. All this within a few seconds and a couple sketchy ads. The results are stunning.
The downside to this app, however, is that it's pretty limited to what clips you can use. And it's a shame too, because every time I see this technology, I see infinite potential for how it could be used in everyday creative situations. For Hollywood, however, this is very common tech.
Think films like The Irishman, which uses CGI visual effects to de-age its older cast.
Despite how common it is in Hollywood, it's still far from perfect. Think also The Irishman.
Although I think one of the more fascinating and less talked about uses of this kind of tech is Ang Lee's Gemini Man.
Gemini Man was written in the late 90s by Darren Lemke and had been thrown from hand to hand in Hollywood looking for someone that could pull it off. Unfortunately, it couldn't be successfully pulled off. Gemini Man is about a man trying to leave the assassin business, but before he can do that, he has to escape a younger clone of himself who's hunting him down. It sounds like a simple story, but in the late 90s, how are you going to pull off the younger clone aspect?
Sure, you could hire two different actors, but this is the peak of early CGI experimentation in Hollywood, so why not try something new? Despite test footage being shot and multiple directors, producers, and other writers being put on the project, the film fell apart and the script was shelved. That is, until Ang Lee came around. Just before reviving Gemini Man, Ang Lee had created Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, a drama about a young soldier visiting home from Iraq, and it was all shot in 4K 120 FPS. And before that, it was Oscar-winning Life of Pi, which used state-of-the-art CGI to create a lifelike tiger which blew away audiences.
Gemini Man is a combination of these two ideas, 120 FPS and CGI, and it only works about half of the time. Let's take a look at two scenes here, one that works and one that doesn't. And we can try and figure out best reasons as to why a director might actually use these effects.
The first scene I want to look at here is the motorcycle chase scene from the first act of the film. This is the first major set piece and an important moment for the movie. It's the first time Will Smith, the actor that plays our protagonist, and the audience, is meeting his younger self. Ang Lee had to get this scene perfect in order to sell the rest of the film. He doesn't. The scene starts out like your typical action scene. Will Smith wakes up to find a sniper is trailing him and his friends, so he runs off to lead the attackers away, so his friends can escape. During the first half of this chase sequence, the mysterious sniper can be seen only from a distance in brief shots. On top of this, he is wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, so it makes it hard to tell exactly who it is.
Side note, as a means to stop confusion, from here on out we will be referring to the two as New Smith and Old Smith.
Back to the action. Old Smith gets on a motorcycle, and this was the exact moment when I was watching the film for the first time that made me go, "Oh Lord, no, this is weird." It's like a switch was flicked that changed from live action to cartoon. The physics of the jacket, the way the motorcycle moves, the way it pairs with the higher frame rate. This isn't even New Smith yet. This isn't looking good for Ang. Soon after, New Smith joins Old Smith in his own motorcycle, and the chase continues. During this chase sequence, it becomes very apparent that the motorcycles and the drivers were added entirely in post as they move along with the camera. They don't look like they hold any physical weight. The two eventually end up in a fight on the streets. New Smith at one point hits Old Smith in the face with his motorcycle, and it looks so corny it's unreal. Especially when you pair that with the dodge Old Smith performs right afterwards. This is all kind of a weird choice considering the whole point of 3D 4K 120 FPS is to make things hyper-realistic, which makes it really difficult to hide faults in the CGI animation the same way traditional 24 FPS can. This is because in traditional frame rates and image quality, it is enough for us to perceive fluid motion, but not enough to replicate how our eyes perceive the real world, which gives filmmakers leeway on what they can and can't make look realistic.
Surprisingly, the rest of the movie doesn't actually follow this trend. In fact, there's one scene that I think pulls off what Ang Lee was trying to do perfectly.
In the second scene we are looking at, New Smith is being held at gunpoint by Old Smith after his failed attempt to lure him out to kill him. This scene is absolutely fantastic. Not only because of the dialogue and the pacing, but because of how the CGI comes together on Newsmith. He looks real. With a scene that is supposed to hit as emotionally as this does, it works super well. This is due to a few reasons. It's low light, which is great for hiding the uncanny valley of Newsmith. It's purely dialogue, delivered through the characters largely standing completely still, which stops the weird physics of the CGI when it moves around and interacts with the world. And when you put it right up beside Old Smith, you can really see exactly how Will Smith is aged, and it really drives home the dialogue in the scene. This should have been the first scene we see of this trick, instead of the one discussed earlier. CGI such as this works way better in drama than action. Remember the clips from The Irishman we played earlier? So if this only works half of the time, why would any director choose this for their film? Well, there are a few reasons. When you get it right, it looks good. But the longer you place the de-age actors in the film, and depending on the conditions of the scene, the more the brain will pick it apart. This is why in movies like Star Wars, Rise of Skywalker, and some of the more recent Marvel movies, the de-aging tech is used as more of a set piece rather than an integral part of the movie. But what about those like Ang Lee and the examples we went through just now? Why decide to use the CGI for an entire film if it only works half of the time? Because if nobody is using it when it works half of the time, there will be nobody to figure out how to make it work all of the time. As soon as 3D 4K 120 FPS films with heavy CGI and action become a common thing, the doors to what is possible of cinema and storytelling are going to be blown wide open. The only way to get there is to experiment with the tech and figure out how it works. And directors like Ang Lee are the ones pioneering that.
Remember, a lot of things we take for granted today in cinema wouldn't be here without some mistakes along the way. For an example, think back to the flawed two-strip Technicolor process of early cinema. Due to how expensive it was, its impracticality, and filmmakers not being familiar with the tech, it absolutely flopped. But with these failures, we would never have achieved the three-strip Technicolor that revolutionized the industry. The same goes for de-aging CGI. We have to learn to walk before we can run.
Movies like Gemini Man have proven that tech like this can be used for creative and meaningful purposes. And with apps like Reface being available on most devices, it's only a matter of time before this tech is commonly available to the common creator. And who knows, maybe that time is now.